What's up, guys? Today I'll be bringing you that Mistweaver guide for Shadowlands that you've been waiting for. I know the spec's in a tough spot for a lot of you, but hopefully this guide will help you prevail through it and continue to play your Mistweaver and gain rating. Anyways, I encourage you to watch the whole video, use the sections below to navigate to what information is most relevant to you. There will be some gameplay clips towards the end of the video that are pretty cool ways to make plays. You could learn from that. Anyways, this guide is brought to you by myself as many-time highest rated Mistweaver NA, multiple rank 1, and another god Mistweaver named Rook. I'll put his information or any links to any content that he makes at the bottom. He's a sick player. Go check him out. Anyway, he's known as the best RBG Mistweaver in the game by many, and he's a sick arena player as well. So we've worked together to go through this and hash out what we think will be useful to you guys. So let's get into it. First things first, we're just going to talk about race. If you're on Alliance, you're going to want to be human, and I think that's pretty much the best race on Alliance. You get to play Relentless with it because human basically gets a trinket that lets you out of stuns, so you don't have to play Medallion, and you can just play Relentless, which reduces all incoming CC effects on you, as well as having that human racial to get out of stuns. So human will be the best on Alliance. You could also play Dwarf or Night Elf for fun. Dwarf can get out of Root Beam or Silences, or possibly you could get bleeds off of yourself versus Ferals or Rogues or something along those lines. Night Elf is just kind of cool. You can meld to get out of combat. You can drink with it. You can meld a Stormbolt. You could do some cool stuff, but in the end, human is the most reliable and is probably the best race on Alliance for sure. On Horde, Orc, no question. You get that stun reduction on yourself, which is really good. It's almost like having your own little Relentless built into the Orc. You can also play your Trinket, your Medallion with that, which is really good. So anyways, there's not a lot of room for question here. Human on Alliance and Orc on Horde. Alright, for our conduits, I'm going to show you 3 different trees that you can take for Kyrian and 1 for Venthyr. I like Kyrian a lot personally because for one, it's really good defensively, it's not bad for healing output, and also because I can play Windwalker and I can play Mistweaver as Kyrian. Kyrian's best in slot for Windwalker as well. You can just switch between the 2 specs fluently, and this happens to be really good for Mistweaver. So, I'm just going to give you 3 trees for Kyrian to give you different options for different types of comps to play against. So I'm just going to get started right here. The first one that's pretty good overall in general versus different things, probably where you wouldn't be getting trained, would be going with Clea. So you're going to get Valiant Strikes at the top. Crit Strikes grant you stacks of Valiant Strikes up to 20. If a nearby party member drops below 50%, you consume these stacks and heal them for 1% of their max health per stack. So if someone drops below 50%, this will randomly heal them and give you just a free healing output on them. It also says that it doesn't work more than once a minute, which is fine. You still get some use out of it. It's still pretty decent. So the first potency conduit you're going to go into is Resplendent Mist. This is the best potency conduit for Mistweaver. Your Gust of Mist has a 30% chance to do 120% more healing, or it's going to be a lower percentage if your conduit is a lower item level, but it's still good nonetheless. This will help you get really big mastery heals randomly. There's a chance for them to just proc harder. So say you're renewing Mist or use any of your heals, the initial mastery heal could be increased and help you get some more healing out. This is really strong. You should definitely use this conduit no matter what tree you are. Moving down, Mentorship. While you're above 90% health, you increase your party members' max health by 5%. This is also pretty nice. Just gives you a little bit more of a buffer to keep your team alive if your health is above 90%. Moving down, the first Finesse conduit that I would run with this tree is when Paralysis ends, your target's movement speed is reduced by 72% for 5 seconds. So if you're going in for the end caps on healers or DPS or whatever, after the end cap ends, Paralysis, they can't move very quickly whatsoever for 5 seconds afterwards, and it's really annoying to them. So say you end cap a healer behind a pillar or something, it might take them an extra couple seconds to get into their DPS's line of sight to get a heal off. Or maybe if you're end capping a DPS for peels after the end cap's over, it will hurt that DPS to where they can't move very well even after the end cap, so it's just more of a peel. If you don't want to use this, you can definitely use Swift Transference, which makes it to where after you port, you get movement speed increase. So this is going to be good if people are training you, but I will, keep in mind, have another tree versus teams that do train you that I'll show you in a minute. So I probably wouldn't take this with this tree just because I would be taking this tree versus things that aren't training me anyway. So you don't really need the port increased speed unless you're trying to kite more or in rare other situations, but mostly for when you're trying to kite. So moving down, I would go with Cleansing Rites, considering the other one isn't very helpful at all. This increases your mount speed by 10%, which doesn't matter in arena past the starting gate, which it's pretty irrelevant. But Cleansing Rites, in the beginning of the game, when you're out of combat for 5 seconds, if the other team doesn't initiate, then you have that 10% shield given to you. It's not the craziest thing in the world, but I think it's actually useful compared to the other one. Moving down to this endurance slot, I would go with Harm Denial instead of anything like Fortifying Ingredients or Grounding Breath, because this Harm Denial, if you're channeling Soothing Mist on your target that you're healing, you can expel harm and heal them. So this just helps you with healing output on your teammates. I would use this to increase the expel harm's healing in general, just on your teammates for output. So this is the one I would go with. And then going down for a second potency conduit, I would use Life Cocoon. Increases your healing over time received by an additional 45% or whatever the percentage is with the item level of the conduit, and this effect would linger for 6 seconds after the cocoon is removed. After cocoon's gone, this still increases your healing done over time, which is pretty much all of your healing other than Vivify, enveloping, renewing, etc. It also works like from other classes. So say you cocoon a druid in their guardian affinity and they use their regen, this would actually increase their regen. So any healing over time effects on the target. It's not just your healing over time effects. But anyway, that's one I would choose. And then you would also gain this Bear's Pursuit debuff that you can put on people. So if you're Crackling Jading whenever you don't need to be healing, or if you're Rising Sun Kicking, you have a chance to slow your target's movement speed by 45% for 20 seconds. This is a pretty crazy slow that you can do. You have a chance to proc it on someone. Once the game allows you to get your renown high enough, this will be usable. So this is the first tree that I'm talking about with Kyrian. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is going to be used for defensive purposes. Okay, for this next tree, we're going to be going with Forge Light Prime Mechanicos. This is for teams such as maybe Rogue Mage or a double melee team that's trying to run you down. So I'm just going to start talking about it. Bronze Call to Action. After using 90 damaging or healing spells and abilities, your next spell or ability summons Brawn, who knocks enemies back on arrival and then attacks and heals your targets for 30 seconds. So you get this random dude who just comes and knocks them off after a little while in the arena, and it also can heal your targets a little bit and offer some damage too as well if you're hitting the enemy team. This part isn't so important, but it is somewhat helpful. The first endurance conduit that you'll be getting is Expel Harm's healing increase, but you'll also be getting another endurance conduit down here, so don't worry. But Expel Harm's healing increase is really good with Harm Denial, because if a team is training you, one of the best things you can do under pressure is when you get around a corner and you're able to heal yourself, one of the biggest healing outputs you can do is to Soothing Mist enveloping yourself and then press Expel Harm on yourself, so it double procs because you're channeling Soothing on yourself. And you can also use this ability even when you're not pressing Soothing Mist, so it just gets a lot of value in this particular setting where you're probably getting trained by someone. You don't have to cast Soothing or anything, you can just press it when you're running, or if you are able to Soothing, it's boom, Soothing, enveloping, and then Expel Harm. You should be just full health. It should be a massive heal. And then coming down into this Soulbind ability, Phial of Serenity now knocks enemies away from you. So if you want to get some distance, or if you're playing on a Z-axis map, you can use your Phial to knock the enemy back. It actually works really well. So again, versus double melee maybe on a Z-axis, or even just to get some, like a little bit of a barrier between you and them, this is really nice. So you can use this. And then next you'll be getting this Finesse Conduit. Here is where I would use the Transcendence over the Paralysis Finesse Conduit, because if you're getting trained, you get this movement speed after you port, which is just really helpful. It feels really clean whenever you're just trying to live, and you get this extra little boost. So I would go with that. Here, regenerating materials, casting or receiving healing has a chance to improve the remaining durability on your armor. Does not matter in arena. Fall damage also doesn't matter in arena, so don't worry about this. these two, pick whatever you want, doesn't matter. Fortifying ingredients in this next endurance conduit. This makes it to where when you fortifying brew, you gain a shield for a percentage of your health. This is obviously really good for when you're getting trained and you're scared. This tree is basically for teams that you know are going to go you, so this shield is really nice. And then you are going to want at least one potency conduit, which puts you into this tree. So you're going to go with Resplendent Mist, which is your best potency conduit. Again, Gust of Mist has a chance to proc harder, as I talked about before. You would definitely want this. And then also Soulsteel Clamps is just insane. I think people are going to be running this like crazy in the next coming week or two when you can acquire Renown 31. After standing still for 5 seconds, incoming stun and incap durations are reduced by 30%. This lasts for 5 seconds once you start moving. So in the beginning of a game versus Rogue Mage, or maybe again a double melee team that wants to go you, if you're able to stand still for 5 seconds at any point in time, the next CC that hits you for a little bit after you start moving, or if you just stand still forever and just sit there channeling on a pillar on your teammates from max range, if they try to swap to you, then all their CC, their stuns and their incap or whatever it is, it's going to be reduced by 30%. So this is insanely good, especially versus Rogue Mage or something that can swap you in a kidney or something like that. So definitely try to use this tree as a defensive tree versus Rogue Mages or double melees that train you. And now we're going to talk about a third tree that you can go versus maybe dot teams, caster, rot teams. So for this tree, this is going to be used versus something like Shadow Priest of Lock or a team that can rot your team down. You're going to get combat meditation from the first thing in the Pelagos tree. This makes it to where Weapons of Order increases your mastery by 350 for 20 seconds and occasionally expels sorrowful memories. Walking through these memories extends the effect by 6 seconds, so it may only occur once every minute. So your Weapons of Order is now buffed even more on the mastery, so this means your Gust of Mist's healing is increased for the duration of this 20 seconds, or even longer than 20 seconds if you keep walking through these little memories on the ground. So the first potency conduit that you're going to use, again, Resplendent Mist, the best potency conduit. I'm not going to get too into it again, but you should go with this. The next thing that you get is pretty useless. Defeating an enemy lowers the cooldown on file. You're not going to get any use out of this in arena, so don't worry about it. The first endurance conduit that you would use is Expel Harm. So you want the healing to be increased just to give you more output on yourself and on your teammate. And then now going down, I believe neither of these is useful in arena, so you don't have to think about it too much. I'm just going to skip down to the next potency slot. Life Cocoon, increased healing over time with Nourishing Chi, as I talked about before. This just makes it to where your HOTS are increased during and slightly after your Life Cocoon. So this whole tree is kind of just about healing output, which brings me down to the Endurance Conduit that you're going to take. So if you're playing versus a rot team, you might find that healing elixirs isn't keeping yourself full health. So your health will probably rot beyond that, which means that having Vivify on yourself with Grounding Breath being increased by a certain percentage, and also having the chance to be free of cost is good for your mana, which is extremely important as a Mistweaver. Mana kind of hurts. Most of you know this already. But anyway, Grounding Breath versus these rot teams helps just keep heals up on yourself with less mana cost. A bigger Vivifies means less Vivifies, and also the chance for that Vivify to be free of mana cost. And going down to the Soulbind ability at the end, using a speller ability reduces the magic damage taken by 1% for 6 seconds. Using another speller ability increases this amount by 1% if it is not a repeat of the previous speller ability, stacking to 3%. So most of the game you'll have a slight percentage of magic damage decrease taken. This, again, obviously this is good versus rot teams. You just take slightly less damage. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but it definitely helps. But anyway, these are the 3 Kyrian trees that you can switch between depending on what types of comps you're playing against. You've got Clea for general gameplay, you've got Forge Light Prime Mechanicos for getting trained, and you have Pelagos versus things like rot teams. Moving on, I'm going to talk about a Venthyr tree that you can run if you want to play Venthyr instead. I'm not going to talk about all the Venthyr trees, just one to give you guys something to use. Okay, so for this Venthyr tree, for those of you who are Venthyr, this is one example of something you could do. I find this path to be pretty okay. So anyway, Thrill Seeker starts off with the Nagia, the Mistblade tree. While in combat, you gain a stack of Thrill Seeker every 2 seconds or 4 stacks on killing an enemy. At 40 stacks, Thrill Seeker is consumed to grant you Euphoria, increasing your haste by 20% for 10 seconds. Thrill Seeker decays rapidly while you are not in combat. As time goes on, you'll just get these haste increases throughout the game. Doesn't occur too often, but it does happen several times per game. This is alright, it's nothing crazy, but it's pretty good. The first potency conduit, as usual, Resplendent Mist, it's just the best. You're going to go with that. Now moving down, Agent of Chaos. This is insanely good for Venthyr monks. So whenever you want to port in with your Door of Shadows for CC, or if you want to just peel for your DPS or something, when you Door of Shadows on top of them, they get disoriented for a couple of seconds, which is really nice because Mistweavers don't really have the craziest CC chains, but they do have instant cast CC. So increasing this by any amount of time is really strong to help your DPS get kill windows. So if you port on top of the enemy healer, disorient them for a couple extra seconds, you can end cap them off of it, you can leg sweep them off of that end cap, and this just makes the chain of CC a little bit longer and gives you a little bit more mobility to work with. You can use your Door of Shadows creatively as well for other things. It doesn't have to be for CC, but this definitely is really, I think it's cool and it's really fun. And it's strong, so definitely go with that. Lingering Numbness on Paralysis is the next thing, but you could switch this between Swift Transference as well, depending on if you want that movement speed or if you want to just cuck the other healer with your Paralysis, reducing their movement speed. This is your choice. Do whatever you want with this. Just pick between those two. I think those two are the strongest for sure. Now down to your Endurance Conduit. I think that you should take either Fortifying Brew grants you the shield, or you can take Harm Denial to increase the Expel Harm's healing. It's just kind of your preference and what's happening to you, what you're struggling with. If you feel like you're dying, then maybe take Fortifying Ingredients to help your Fortifying Brew keep you alive with that shield. Or if you feel like you're okay and you just want more healing output, then you can go with Harm Denial. Going down to here, I would 100% go with Imbued Reflections. Fallen Order monks, this is your Covenant ability. Fallen Order does a lot of healing. It just throws random envelopings out onto your team for a certain amount of time after you press it, and it's crazy amounts of healing. So if you pre-use your Fallen Order before you get CC'd or something, it has a very good chance of keeping your team alive throughout the duration of your CC. So if you use this conduit, it enhances that healing by a ton and just gives you more of a chance to use a cooldown before you get CC'd and keep your team alive without having the trinket or without them having to use a defensive, or maybe keeps them from dying if you don't have trinket or they don't have any defensives. So this is, you need to play this potency conduit if you're a Venthyr. It's really, really strong. Moving down to the Soulbind ability you get at the end. This is insanely good too for Mistweavers. They struggle. A lot of you guys struggle with getting interrupted a lot. This just reduces the incoming interrupts by 25% as well as snares and roots. Familiar Predicaments is insanely good for if you get kicked. The lockout just doesn't last as long. So you don't have to worry about it or stress about getting kicked as much as before. This Venthyr tree is pretty good, and it gives you a little bit of play and wiggle room between your Finesse Conduit 2 choices and your Endurance Conduit 2 choices, with everything else being pretty locked in. So I hope that this helps you for you Venthyr players. So now moving on to Legendaries. This one is very straightforward. 99% of the time you'll probably be using Tear of Morning. So Tear of Morning, casting Vivify or Enveloping Mist on a target with Renewing Mist has a 10% chance to spread the Renewing Mist to another target. Your Vivify healing through Renewing is increased by 20%. And your Enveloping Mist also heals all allies with Renewing Mist for 20% of its healing. This is just so good that you're going to end up taking it pretty much all the time. So whenever you cast Vivify or Enveloping on a target that has Renewing, it can spread the Renewing Mist to another target. So this makes it to where you don't have to press Renewing Mist as much. Saves you mana and keeps your hots up. So that part of it's really strong. And then beyond that, whenever you're healing a target that has Renewing Mist with Vivify, your Vivify is increased by 20%. So this is really sick too. It does the same thing with Enveloping, except for it spreads it to other people that have Renewing. So it takes 20% of your Enveloping healing and gives it to every other person in your group that has Renewing Mist on them. So they'll get a tiny little 20% enveloping, but this is super, super good for just spread healing in a lot of situations. So Tear of Mourning, definitely get this. Very good, better than everything else for 99% of the situation. Another thing that you can do if you keep dying before your or something, you have the option of Sophusa's Proclamation with Orc. I probably wouldn't recommend this without Orc, but if you're dying in stuns, you can take Sophusa's Proclamation and it stacks with the Orc racial to make it to where you are just in stun for a shorter amount of time, or crowd control in general. So it might help you live or something. Again, like I probably wouldn't really do this, but just to give you something else to think about if you are dying in stuns constantly. The only other legendary beyond these two that could be fun in 2v2, if you want to meme on people in twos, you can play Ancient Teachings of the Monastery. This is pretty funny to play. You play with your Essence Font, to where after casting Essence Font, your Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, and Rising Sun Kick heal an injured ally within 20 yards for 250% of the damage done. So this kind of gives you Way of the Crane, if you remember from previous expansions, after every time you Essence Font. So in twos, you can go in and just do damage. I wouldn't use it in threes ever. I probably wouldn't really use it in twos most of the time, but if you want to have fun and try it, this can be really fun to just meme on people with and be offensive. And you can use this talent. This is the only time I'd probably use Invoke Chi-Ji is with that talent, considering you're not going to be soothing a lot to proc your Jade statue. So that's pretty much all I have to talk about on the legendaries. Get Tear of Mourning. It's the best. Just run it every game for the most part. If you want to meme on people in twos, Ancient Teachings of the Monastery. And for a very rare situation, if you just want to try this out to get CC'd less, Sophusa's Proclamation. It also increases your stats by somewhat, so gives you a little bit more healing output and a little bit more defense, but 100% Tear of Mourning. So for talents, Mistwrap is going to be the best every game. Don't ever take anything else. Increases your enveloping mist duration by 1 second, which is one of your biggest heals, and it also gives the healing bonus of 10% for your other heals that occur during an enveloping mist. So you're going to want to take this every time. Chi Torpedo you're going to take 99% of the time, unless you think Tiger's Lust could come in handy for you, but it isn't that strong, as you already get a speed increase after you Chi Torpedo, and Chi Torpedo makes your roll just way stronger. So if you play Tiger's Lust, then your roll is really not good. You're pretty much just going to always want to take Chi Torpedo. Moving down, now that Manatee's off global, it's hard to take anything else or to recommend anything else. You try to use this when the other team is bursting. So you would pop like Manatee with your Invoke Yulon, and you'd start spamming out your heals versus a team that's just pumping, maybe like a Ret Wings or Warrior Avatar, something where you're going to be taking a lot of incoming damage for a known period of time. So Manatee is just really good for this. You press it and you start spamming out heals in your team. You save a ton of mana. It's not on global, so you can press it instantly. Life Cycles is the other choice you can try if you would like. It makes it to where enveloping reduces the mana cost of your next Vivify, or Vivify reduces the mana cost of your next enveloping. The only issue with this is that a lot of the time you'll probably just be pressing Vivify without enveloping, so it might not be useful on your envelopings, and vice versa. But if you want to try it, I've used this in the past expansions. It's pretty good for just reducing your general mana cost if you think you're going to be switching between enveloping and Vivify a lot. But I think Manatee is probably the best most of the time, so you could take this every game and you would be okay with this choice. Moving down to this next slot, Ring of Peace is what I would probably take 99% of the time in 3v3 arena. And in twos, you could try playing Song of Chi-Ji, just because you can actually get this CC off in twos much easier without having more people to interrupt you like in threes. This helps you get more CC in 2v2 arena, as pretty much the only time I'd recommend it, unless you have played a lot of games and find that you need more CC on this one comp that you're playing against in threes, and you can actually get it off because they don't have kicks or for whatever reason. Tiger Tail Sweep could be good if you're playing with a Death Knight. You can use this to make your leg sweep bigger and a shorter cooldown. So if the Death Knight's gripping in for goes, you can roll in and leg sweep every other death grip, I believe, and it makes the range in your leg sweep bigger, so you have a better chance of landing it. So if you're playing TSG or Windwalker DK, you can take this talent for when they grip in, or just anything with a DK. Or you could still take Ring of Peace, but Tiger Tail Sweep is an option when playing with a Death Knight, I would say. So you can use that as an option if you are playing with a DK. Moving down to the next, I would take Healing Elixir every game. Unless you find yourself dying over and over again to something like Boomkin Mage, Shadow Priest Mage, Ellie, Boomy, Ellie, something with double caster that keeps swapping to you and killing you, in which case Healing Elixir still might be a decent choice, but Diffuse is an option there if you want to try to use it to take 60% less damage from their goes. If a mage is combusting on you, it almost gets every other combust, or sometimes if they aren't pressing their combust on cooldown, you can get every combust with it. Anyway, probably just Healing Elixirs for the most part. Moving down, I would take Statue every game unless that weird situation in 2s where you play the Essence Font Legendary. You can play Invoke Chi-Ji, the Red Crane. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I would just take Summon Jade Statue. It's the most healing output. If you start soothing someone, then the statue also soothes the target, and then makes it to where they're just getting constantly healed by that statue. So overall, it just has the most healing output of these talents and helps you with mana as well. Moving down, Focus Thunder every single game. You can use your Thunder Focus T on 2 spells in a row with this talent. So Thunder Focus T gives you a free Vivify of no mana cost. So you can do that twice in a row. 2 Vivifies for free with Focus Thunder. Insanely good for mana throughout a game if you're doing this like off cooldown. Or if you're really low health or your teammate's really low health, you can Thunder Focus T with Enveloping, which immediately heals for an extra amount on top of the gust healing that comes with the heal. So if you Thunder Focus Envelop, it is going to be a huge heal. So if you're really low in dire situation, that's probably going to be one of your savior globals. So Thunder Focus, Soothing, Enveloping, and then you can Vivify after for free, which would be increased by the Enveloping Mist boost of 40% increased healing. So Focus Thunder every game, don't worry about the other two. Alright, so for PvP talents, I would recommend taking Refreshing Breeze pretty much every single game. Just increases the Vivify healing by 20%, which helps you big time with mana and healing throughput throughout a game. So pretty much take this every single game. A lot of people used to like Chrysalis. It used to be a lot stronger. I don't like it anymore. The cooldown on Cocoon is 2 minutes, and this only makes it to where your Cocoon's 1 minute and 35 seconds instead of 2 minutes, which is still a crazy amount of time. So it's almost better, I think it is better, to just take other talents that will help you keep your teammate alive between your life Cocoons and help you with your mana, as that's a big issue in games. I would be using talents more so like Counteract Magic versus anything that has dots, magic over time dots, say versus like Boomkins or even like maybe Shadow Priest or Ellie or Mage or something. You can also take Zen Focus T as an Aura Mastery, so you're immune to silence and interrupts for 5 seconds versus teams that have ranged kicks for you, or if a double melee is training you, you can use this to get free heals on yourself if you're scared of getting kicked. So say versus a double melee team, I'd probably take this setup. This has short port, reduces the cooldown of your transfer by 20 seconds. So if you're getting trained by a double melee, you can play this setup where you have Aura Mastery to cast, you can port faster. You could take Refreshing Breeze or maybe Grapple Weapon. If your teammate doesn't have Disarm, you can play Disarm for the double melee as well. Let's talk about like a regular comp that I'd be healing through. This is for purges. Let's say for purges versus Ellie Shadow Priest. You want to play maybe something like Dome of Mist, Counteract, Refreshing. Dome of Mist makes it to where if they purge your envelopings, it turns your enveloping into a shield instead of just getting rid of your enveloping. You could play Dome of Mist to counteract getting purged on your envelopings a lot, and then play Counteract just for the dots. With your legendary, that makes it to where when you Vivify, it spreads your Renewing Mist to other people. So even if you're getting purged and you're pressing Vivify regularly on targets with Renewing Mist and you're playing Tear of Morning legendary, then you will be able to do a lot more healing output with your Renewing Mists because you'll just have it up all the time with that legendary, helping you keep it spread. That's good versus dot teams and purge teams. Say they don't have any purges and they have dots, say like an Affliction Warlock. Any Affliction Warlock team, you're going to want to play probably Counteract Magic with Healing Sphere. Counteract for the dots, And Healing Sphere is insanely good only versus Affliction Warlocks. Something like maybe Shadow Priest Affliction Lock or Affliction Lock X, anything like that. These are insanely good for dispelling because you don't get the Unstable Affliction silence and damage effect on yourself if you dispel yourself or teammates with Healing Sphere. You basically drop it, and then if you or your teammate walks into it, it dispels them and heals them a little bit from all of their effects. So this is kind of a little cheat versus Affliction Locks. You can purge a lot without taking a ton of damage. So you can move around between these talents. And if you're getting kicked a lot, which you hopefully shouldn't be versus Affliction teams, because Affliction teams generally only have one CS that's on a 20-something second cooldown, you might not need to take Aura Mastery. But if you're playing against something like LSD, like LE Affliction Lock, you might want to play Aura Mastery just because they have Wind Shear and CS. And you might even have to drop your Counteract for Dome of Mist if they're purging your envelopings. Try to not play Dome of Mist. Try to keep the Counteract. Try to just move around with these talents because Counteract is a ton of healing output. If you're able to fake their kicks and keep your Counteract magic flowing with Renewing Mists because you're able to cast Vivifies and keep your renewings up, it's really, really nice. Versus things like Rogue Mage, you'll run into that comp a lot. Probably play this setup. I would play Aura Mastery, Disarm for the Rogue, and a Refreshing Breeze healing increase. So this just kind of gives you some ideas of what to do with your PvP talents. You can manipulate them depending on your playstyle. If you're not so good at disarming, you can maybe play Short Port against Rogue Mage, or you can play Short Cocoon just to get a shorter Cocoon cooldown. But I personally would play this setup versus Rogue Mage. So that's just kind of a walkthrough through the talents and the PvP talents. I hope that helps. Alright, so now I'm going to show you what you should be doing every game whenever you walk into the arena at the very start. So say the gates are just opening, you're going to run out, you're going to drop your statue, you're going to drop your port, you're going to move away from your port, so that way if someone wants to go you, then you can just port away instead of being on top of your port and being unable to move anywhere if you're in trouble. So as soon as I port, I always re-drop my port, so just so I don't forget, and if I want to move it later, I can just move it to here or something. But generally when you walk into the arena, you walk in, you drop your statue, you drop your port, you move away from your port, start getting your Renewing Mists up on everybody, start healing your teammates who are out in the middle, and that's pretty much how you should be setting yourself up to start every arena. Okay, so now on healing rotation, you're going to be wanting to keep your Renewing Mists up on as many people as possible, so that way they're just getting that free hot. And also with your tier of Morning Legendary, you'll be able to spread your Renewing Mists from one target to another with Vivify. So you're just going to get this free healing up. You don't want to be sitting on charges. Keep your renewings up on whatever teammates you think will be taking damage. And then on top of that, whenever they do start taking damage, try to utilize Vivify as much as you can because it does cost less mana than Enveloping Mist and it's an AoE. And you can use it with Thunder Focus Tea for free of mana, which is really nice. It's good for you throughout the game as Thunder Focus Tea is a 30-second cooldown. So you're going to want to keep your renewings up, press your Vivify for throughput healing, and if you really need to do some big healing, then you're going to use your Mana Tea, you're going to Yu'lon, and then you're going to start casting, and you can use, depending on how low your teammate is, try to just Vivify, and you can use Expel Harm as well. It's cheaper on mana than Vivify for single target healing. If your teammate's super low, you can Thunder Focus Envelop, which is a huge heal, and then try to Vivify for free after that for a really big Vivify that's increased by your Enveloping Mist healing, because Enveloping gives you 40% increased healing received from your other healing spells while it's on. So if you envelop first and then Vivify, then your Vivify is much bigger. Another thing that you can think about is if people are training you, say there's 2 melee DPS on me, I managed to get behind the pillar for a second, you cast Soothing Mist, Enveloping Mist, Expel Harm. The Expel Harm double procs on you since you're channeling Soothing on yourself, and it's increased by your Enveloping Mist. So you get a really big heal from that little combo. So soothing, enveloping, expel harm behind a pillar maybe to top yourself really quick. And that's pretty much as simple as it is for healing rotation. If your whole team gets low, then you can revival. Or if they all have a lot of dots on themselves and you want to clean your whole team, you can press revival. Hopefully when they're not full health, you want to get some healing out of it. But anyway, that's as simple as it is for the healing rotation. Just try to vivify to keep your team alive, keep your renewing mists up. You can envelop when they're super low, or just if you know they're about to take a ton of damage and you're going to be channeling into them, then you can envelop to get the hot and to make your next heals increased on them. It's pretty simple, so don't worry about it too much. You should be able to do okay with it. Just try to utilize your mana teas on their burst as much as possible to conserve mana. And also, if you're just trying to conserve mana, try to not take damage. Use your ports really well. Use your Ring of Peace to keep distance. Use your disarms on the melee if you're playing disarm to take less damage. You don't always have to heal through things if you can avoid the damage in some way. You want to be able to do that instead. So now I'm going to show you some clips of some plays you can make. This is going to be a clip of showing you how to port Death Knight's grips. There is a macro included that can help you do this a little bit easier, and I'll show you the macros that I use for these plays at the end. So here, just a clip, going to show you porting a DK grip. So first things first, you run into the arena, you drop your statue, drop your port, move away from the port, get your renewings up, you start healing your team. This Death Knight wants to grip you to the middle, and I'm spamming my my port macro, which makes it to where you can't teleport while you're channeling Soothing Mist. So as soon as he death grips me, it breaks my Soothing Mist and allows me to port. So watch, I'm spamming this macro at the bottom and he grips me and I port. I'll show you one more time. He grips me and I port and bug out his grip, and now I'm safe over here doing whatever I want. So I'm sure a lot of you are struggling versus DK teams that just grip you into the middle of the map. If you want to use this macro, you can, or you can just press your regular port whenever they do grip you in, right when they grip you. Because otherwise, if you don't do this, they'll grip you into the middle and they'll disorient you into a stun, and then your whole team is going to take a ton of damage. Doing this on every DK grip is insanely good. If you can manage to pull this off, it is really, really good. You can do this to any Death Knight, even at high rating. This is really useful. So try to pull this off. I'll give you the macro at the end. Moving on to the next play you can make. Here, I'm going to be showing you how to taunt a hunter trap. You can do this in your games with this macro that I'm going to give you. If you know you're about to get freezing trapped, you taunt the pet and it will run over and break the trap if you press it right before you get trapped. This macro that I have over here, it makes it to where you don't have to be targeting the pet at all. You don't have to be targeting anything. If right before you get trapped, if you're in range of any pet that is on the other team, then it will taunt the pet towards you. You just press this button if you know that it's coming. You can do this on end caps or blinds or anything that can break to damage, as long as there's a pet on the other team. And you can taunt and break the CC that's coming on you. And you can actually do this consistently, even up at really high rating. Alright, so he throws the trap, I taunt the pet, it runs over and breaks the trap. In this clip, something that happens very often, I'm going to show you again. Run in, drop my statue, put my port down, move away from it as usual. This warriors are going to want to leap and try to fear you regularly. You can just port if you see them coming. They don't get the fear. You line of sight them for a second, so that way they're just kind of standing there. And if they want to fear you, then they're just going to waddle around the corner. But usually they're going to realize that they're just not going to get to you and they're going to waste a lot of time. So they'll just go back to your team and charge back in. And then you don't have a fear on you. He's wasted his leap and he's just in the middle with no leap and no charge to get to you. Versus warriors, this is really good to look out for. If they try to leap to you, you can just port it. And I'm going to show you another way to mess with warriors in 2 different ways in a second. Here, I'm going to show you, you can actually port Stormbolt while it's midair if you're looking out for it. Say if you have Omnibar at the bottom, you know that he has Stormbolt up, then you're looking out for it, you just port it while it's midair, and you're behind a pillar and you're safe. So yeah, you can do this regularly as well. Here, I'll be showing you how to port a Disc Priest Fear, or Shadow Priest Fear. Basically, as you just saw, I'll slow it down for you, going back. Alright, so I'm here, My port is right here. I see this disc priest is between me and my teammates. This video is from last season, but it is just a clip that I had handy. It still works exactly the same. So you could do this very, very consistently versus priests. See, he's going to be between me, pushing me away from my team in a second. He's waddling towards me. I'm just in a bad spot. I'm backing up away from my port. He's getting closer and closer to me. I time my port right here. Boom. He uses his Psychic Scream, as you can see on my Omni bar. And I get away from that fear. So again, you can do this regularly versus any priest at any rating. The higher ones might be harder to do it to, but it'll happen. So anyway, keep this move in mind and try it out. See how it goes. Here, I'm going to show you there's a macro that I use to drop Ring of Peace directly on top of myself without having to use my mouse or anything. If this warrior charge Stormbolts me, I just press the macro and it instantly drops the ring before his Stormbolt or his charge reaches me. Show you one more time. He's going to charge me. I drop the Ring of Peace with this macro without having to click anywhere, and he can't get to me in the stun. You can use this Ring of Peace macro for lots of different things. This is just one example. Say if a rogue mage might be switching to you and you know the sun's coming, you can pre-Ring of Peace yourself and kind of save yourself. So this macro is nice, and I will share all of these macros with you here in a second. Okay, so the first macro that I will be showing you is the Hunter Taunt macro. So you're going to use this one. Just copy this line. I'll put these under the description of the video so that you guys can copy paste it into your game. Basically, the first 3 lines taunt any pets that are around you in the arena, and underneath it I actually have this in here. This taunts the enemy team, so like the actual players if there is no pet. And this is so if you're playing versus rogue mage or something with stealth, you can be spamming this button while you're running around, spamming your taunt macro, and if anything comes out of stealth for even a second, then you taunt them and you get put in combat so that you can't get sapped. So you're able to just get in combat really fast if you spam this button. So it has a multi-use purpose. You can taunt pets to get traps or other CC, and you can taunt to get into combat. Anyway, the other macro that I'll show you, or I have 2 more macros. One of them is the port macro. This makes it to where if you're channeling Soothing Mist, as you can see here, I can port because I'm not channeling, and if I start channeling, I can't port. So if I'm just spamming it while I'm channeling, then it won't port. So if a Deep K grips me though, and it breaks my Soothing Mist for even a second, and I'm spamming it, then it just ports. So it'll get the death grip instantly. I personally haven't actually used this macro for ever, but it does exist. So if you, just to help you out, I'm usually just sitting there, waiting for the grip, and I just press my port normally. But I probably will start using this just because I can. The only downside is that if the Death Knight is playing with a lock or a shaman or something, and you're spamming this, and you get kicked, obviously it'll cancel your channel. So that's the only issue. But it's very useful for you guys who can't be, maybe not at that level of sitting there holding a global ready for the grip to come in and just pressing your normal port. But this is nice. If you have ping, especially if you have a lot of MS and it's hard for you to port the grip, then you can just be spamming that button. So that's good. The ROP Self macro is going to be this one, /cast at player, Ring of Peace, nothing fancy. I say I'm just running, I'm not using my mouse. My mouse is up here. I just drop it right on myself. And yeah, anyway, I'm going to put these under the description. So there you go, guys. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this guide. I hope it helped you out in some way. I will be streaming a lot of Mistweaver in the future. I'm going to try to get rank 1 on it with Monk Turbo soon. Hopefully we'll rake that in and show it off to you guys. But anyway, you can watch me do that along the way. I play all of the healers as well. I've been playing Druid, Shaman, Pally, Monk, and I will be picking up Disc soon as I can level it. But anyway, follow me on Twitch. Please come follow me on Twitch. Follow Rook. I'll put his information below. Whatever content he might be putting out, I'll give you the link. But definitely come follow me on Twitch, sub to the YouTube if this helped. I just hope all of you have a really nice day or night wherever you are. I appreciate you guys for watching. We broke 2K subs, so I appreciate that so much. We just started so recently, and I'm just going to be putting out more and more stuff for you guys. Probably a Resto Shaman guide next, maybe some macro stuff, just different types of guides. So put whatever you want me to do in the future in the comments below, or if you have any recommendations or feedback on any of my content. If there's something that you're looking for that's not in my YouTube videos, again, go to my Twitch. There's plenty of VODs and tons of games that I play live with my stream. You can come to it, ask me any questions you want live, come hang out, and maybe I'll play with you too on stream. I can go through your VODs too at certain times and help coach you if you need that. But anyways, have a really nice day or night again. I love all of you. Take it easy and peace.